welcome to Therapy Now. I am your host, Dr. Ben. All right, in today's session, we're going to talk more about anxiety, but we're going to take it to a different direction. So, I have a question. How many brains do we have in the human body? Take a guess. 1, 2, 3. All right, so it seems like we have at least 2 brains in the human body, and there is a third brain, potential third brain, which is a human heart. So, again, as I said, we're going to talk about anxiety and how that ties into this so-called second brain. And so the answer is we have one brain upstairs and another brain downstairs. So the brain downstairs is called our gut, where we have a lot of microbes, a lot of bacteria, and this is where the action really takes place when it comes to our immune system and understanding mental disorders. Things like emotional issues, mood disorders. So we're talking about serotonin, right? All right, so has been known to play a key role in balancing our mood. So there is a unique pathway, a connection between our brain, which is upstairs, and our gut, which is downstairs. And so you're asking Dr. Ben, what is this connection and how does it really play a role in how I feel? All right, so I want you to imagine, just take a few seconds, imagine going from one part of the town and you're wanting to cross over to a second part of the town and you need to perhaps use a bridge or a tunnel. So there has to be a connection that connects both ends of the town. And in the case of the brain and the gut, that is called the vagus nerve. So it's also known as the superhighway. So it connects the brain and it connects the gut and really touches upon different organs as well. So there is a nice system of communication which happens between these different areas. And it happens all the time. There needs to be connection, sensory information going forward and backwards, so the brain needs certain information and the vagus nerve is going to relay that information forward. So there is that nice connection. But of course, that also comes with potential issues if the connection is somewhat slow. They call it having a low vagal tone, and how that can really play a role in mood disorders. Things like, anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder. So a lot of these mental struggles, emotional struggles, really comes from that information being relayed, forward and backwards, having a slow vagal tone and not being able to direct information the way it needs to be directed. And then that leads to other problems, as I mentioned. So what are some of the things that we can do to really improve how the information that is sent via the vagus nerve to the brain? Research shows that at least 95% of serotonin, which, as I mentioned, is a mood stabilizer or regulator, that is located in our gut. So about 95% of those serotonin receptors are found in the gut. So this tells us that our gut health is super important and we should not neglect that. That is where it all happens. So again, we have to be able to understand, how do we enable ourselves to improve our gut health. So what are some of the steps that we can take personally to make sure that we are optimizing what happens in our second brain, correct? So there are certain foods that we can eat that would really naturally boost serotonin levels. Again, I know you're wondering, Dr. Ben, just spill the beans, tell us what it is. Exactly. So, number one, eggs. Number two, spinach. Number three, poultry. Number four, nuts. So these are some of the foods that we can eat in, of course, healthy portions, and always being mindful of balance can actually help to give us more serotonin. So how does it happen? So we have to go back thinking about building blocks. So let's say you want to build a house. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have a solid foundation, because if your foundation is weak, the house is going to come crumbling down when there's a massive storm, hurricane, tornado. So you want to make sure your foundation is solid, correct? All right. So the first step is to make sure we have a balance of eating the various foods that I mentioned. And what happens is it introduces tryptophan, which is an amino acid, a building block. So now we can further take the next step to make serotonin, which is known as the mood stabilizer. So once we start consuming these foods, we're introducing more tryptophan in our bodies, which then would convert and make serotonin, what we need. And so as we start to increase the levels of serotonin, we start to feel more energized and more balanced in our mood. So the key thing here is the vagus nerve, that nice connection between our gut and brain. So that superhighway needs to be working to relay that information when there's more serotonin that is needed, so that communication takes place, and then it happens. So when the vagus nerve is not healthy, things like we don't have enough rest. Stress is one of the things that have been noted to really affect the vagus nerve, and causing inflammation in the body, which is really what we don't want when it comes to our mood. So coupled with the fact that we have to pay attention to, number one, good nutrition, we also have to take number two into consideration, avoiding stress. In as much as we need a little bit of stress to really push us to do things, but too much of stress, emotional overwhelm, can really affect vagal health, And so we're talking about vagal tone, having low vagal tone, which has been connected to a lot of mood disorders, as I mentioned, anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder. So, making sure that we eat well, we avoid stress, and the third thing on the list obviously would be make sure we have enough rest, because again, we're always on the run, doing things left and right. We're busy all the time, so we need to just really stay grounded. I mean, if you spend 6 hours doing something, just take a break, focus your mind, practice mindfulness, and just being in the present time. Don't be located, a week into the future or focus in the past. You want to be present and just enjoying that moment, and understanding that one of the major things is our diet, obviously, the type of foods that we eat to optimize tryptophan, which essentially would pass on to making more of what we need, the serotonin in our gut, and also understanding that overall vagal nerve health is essential, because we're battling between overly stimulating, our system, or versus relaxation. So the vagus nerve comes in to keep us relaxed, right? So we want to make sure that we sort of balancing and not really living in a situation where our body is under that notion of fighting or flighting. So either you're fighting something in your life, in your emotional life, in your current life, or you're running away from something. So that actually sets you down the path to experiencing more symptoms of, anxiety. And we see this in the clinical setting where patients would show symptoms, clear symptoms of having anxiety, anxious thoughts. And this is some of the things that we see that, after doing a thorough diagnostic examination, we see that they're either, living in that fight or flight mode. And that is very hard on the vagus nerve. And so relaxation is key to really balancing and staying in optimal health, not just physical health, mental health, as well as spiritual health. So there needs to be a balance. And again, it starts with good nutrition, being mindful, making sure you're having enough rest, and just, understand that we have a system in our body that really works to want to keep us healthy. But we need to understand how it works and really making sure that we're taking the steps, as I mentioned, to implement and just observe, and you will see good results. So, again, I'm your host, Dr. Ben, and until next time, subscribe, enjoy the videos, and see you next time. God bless you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.